Welcome back to Raw Machines, the journey where we explore the most impressive processes from across the globe. Today, join me as we discover the traditional wire-weaving craft of Neroth, a place where metal was once bent by hand to create mousetraps, kitchenware, and ornaments that sustained an entire village. This is a story of family labor, skills passed down by word of mouth, and a rhythm of life that vanished when machines replaced human hands. Let's get started. Neroth is a small village in the heart of the Eifel region, in the district of Dawn, with fewer than 1,000 residents. By the 19th century, the decline of agriculture forced the people of Neroth to leave their village in search of a livelihood. This migration created a society that was both impoverished and flexible, always ready to learn a new trade to survive. Around the 1830s, a new path opened when Theodor Kläs brought the craft of wire, weaving from Slovakia to Neroth. Initially just an experiment, wire quickly became the answer to the problem of survival. 4 wire enterprises were gradually established. Among them, the Pfeil Company endured until 1979. The film portrays the rhythm of labor and the spiritual life of the people who dedicated their entire lives to those slender iron wires.
Und ich meine, so eine Bauern da wohnen? Kein Mensch mehr. Und dann kann ich eigentlich schlafen die Bauern da lange wie after.
Production in Neroth did not take place in noisy factories, but wound its way into every home. Some worked in a master's shop, while others processed goods right in their kitchens, next to the dining table. The work was highly specialized. One household would only make round mousetraps, while another focused on wire baskets or household wares. Every family was a link in a decentralized yet rhythmic production chain. A typical example is Franz Steffes, an outsourced craftsman who produced round traps for the Pfeil Company. The trade was passed down from father to son. Children participated in the labor from a very early age, not because they were forced, but because it was the only way for the family to survive. The round trap, or rundfalle, begins with a coil of annealed iron wire. The wire is measured against a wooden block, equipped with nails driven in at fixed intervals. Each nail spacing corresponds to a specific frame segment. The craftsman hooks the wire onto the nails, bends it to the predetermined curve, and then cuts it using hand pliers. A finished round trap is assembled from 4 identical frames. If even a single frame is off in size, the entire trap becomes unbalanced. The doors won't fit, and the mesh will be uneven. At this stage, craftsmanship is demonstrated through repetitive precision, a silent discipline that the trade of wire weaving demands of the artisan every single day. The 4 frames are gathered at a central point. The craftsman wraps wire around this intersection, turn by turn, then uses a small hammer to press the joint tight against an iron anvil. Once the central joint is locked, the The craftsman begins to bend the frames outward, creating the characteristic dome shape. There are no metal molds. The shape is adjusted by eye and by the sense of balance in the hands. If the dome is too low, the trap is weak. If it is too high, the door will not function properly. The wire weaving trade helped Neroth escape poverty in the mid-19th century, but it also demanded a vast amount of labor from both adults and children. On average, adults worked more than 13 hours a day, while children averaged 3 hours a day to assist their families. The entrance is bent directly from the base of the frame. The craftsman extends a section of wire, bending it at a pre-calculated angle to create a one-way entry. The animal can crawl in, but it cannot escape. This is the key characteristic of a live trap. It does not kill directly, but holds the animal inside. This philosophy aligned with the needs of agricultural pest control, while also satisfying local legal regulations and customs. There are two primary variations: traps made entirely of wire and those with an octagonal wooden base. The wooden base provides more stability on soft ground and serves as an anchor point for securing the wire mesh in the later stages of production. The wire mesh is the most time-consuming part of the entire trap. The wire is anchored to the base and then woven in a spiral pattern around the frame. Every time the wire touches a frame leg, it must be secured immediately. The wire is never allowed to slide freely. The craftsman works by the feel in his fingertips. The wire must be tight enough to hold its shape, but not so taut that it snaps under pressure. Each woven loop is identical to the last, creating a repetitive rhythm that is almost hypnotic. The iron wire was sourced from wire drawing factories in Blumenthal, Gerolstein, and Cologne. In the late 19th century, the wire weaving trade in Neroth received official support through the establishment of a galvanizing plant and vocational training courses, making the products more durable and easier to sell. The side door is installed right at the beginning, before the weaving process continues. The trap maker intentionally leaves an opening near the entrance, where a small iron door with a latch will later be attached for the convenient transport and removal of rodents. The wire unspools smoothly from the reel. Thanks to years of practice, the work has become instinctive and effortless for Franz Steffes. Local lore suggests that one should never grip the wire tightly, but rather let it slide softly through the fingers. Some fathers in the village took it upon themselves to peddle the wire products, thereby bypassing the middlemen business owners. This allowed their families to reduce their workload while maintaining their previous income level. However, this often incited envy among other farmers toward the home-based craftsmen for the small amount of wealth they managed to accumulate. At the final loop, Franz Steffes uses pliers to tighten the bindings. When the round trap is complete, he has woven 22 coils around the frame and secured them at 176 points. Without pausing, the bindings are tidied up immediately after the weaving is finished. The basket trap remains the most popular handcrafted product of the traditional Neroth trade.
Da steht links in der Ecke von der Tür inwendig ein Mannshoher Heiliger. Da war ich doch so verblüfft, dass ich überhaupt nicht wusste, wie ich reagieren soll. Ne? Und da sehe ich doch meinen Irrtum ein und da kam der Pastor. Na, sagte, lieber Mann, was haben Sie denn Schönes da? Ach, sag ich, habe hier Maus und Rattefallen. Die werden Sie wohl auch vielleicht gebrauchen können.
In 1885, Johann Jakob Pfeil founded the Pfeil enterprise in Neroth, laying the foundation for a new era in the wire-weaving trade. While the round trap was a widely popular product, the Irish-style hole trap represented a shift toward mechanical thinking. It was no longer just about bending and weaving, but about calculating force, reflexes, and timing. Unlike the round trap, where geometry plays the leading role, the Irish hole trap relies on the spring. The spring is wound using a self-made tool called a fader eisen. Essentially, it is a fixed iron spindle that allows the craftsman to wrap the wire into perfectly even coils. Winding the spring allows no room for error. If the wire is too stiff, it lacks the necessary snap. If it is too soft, it loses tension quickly. The craftsman must feel the accumulated tension in every twist by hand. There is no written formula, only experience gathered through thousands of springs. Here, the wire is no longer a static material. It begins to remember the force. After the spring comes the component known as the golgen, the frame that holds the wire loop in a ready state. This is what creates the tension within the trap. The operating mechanism is calculated simply but precisely. When the rodent nibbles the bait, it cuts or releases a trigger wire. In an instant, the galgen loses its support point, the spring snaps back, and the wire loop tightens. At this point, the wire weaving trade moves to another level, the craft of designing reflexes. Every detail serves a single moment, the moment when compressed energy is released. Unlike the round trap, the Irish hole trap is always housed within a wooden body. The wood provides a stable frame for the entire spring mechanism while protecting the metal components from the weather. the assembly process requires precise coordination. The spring, the galgen, the trigger wire, and the bait must be placed at the exact position and height. If they are even slightly misaligned, the rodent could eat the bait without triggering the trap. Thanks to the Irish hole trap, the Pfeil enterprise no longer served only the local market. Ireland and England became the primary destinations for Neroth products. This brought about a significant change. Neroth was no longer just a site for outsourced processing, but began to participate directly in the international trade chain. In addition to the primary products, mousetraps and rat traps, the catalog of goods also included many household items. Here, the husband and wife team, Rosa and Franz Bacogni, worked together to create an egg whisk, a tool that can still be found in almost every kitchen today. The process begins by measuring and bending the wire loops that form the whisk head. These loops must be uniform and symmetrical around the central axis. The craftsman does not rely on visual counting, but on feel. The number of loops, the degree of curvature, and the spacing are all ingrained in muscle memory. Wire weavers used annealed, tin-plated, or galvanized iron wire. A polishing stage ensured the products were bright and more durable.
Ja, das merken die ja.
Sich die Finger verbrennen.
The handle of the whisk, a spiral made of steel wire, is created on a hand-cranked drill press. In place of a drill bit, Franz Bacogni attaches a longer iron rod. As he cranks, the rod rests against the edge of the table, using his thigh as a steadying fulcrum. The production of egg whisks often took place within a family atmosphere. One person would bend the frames, another would spin the handles, and a third would inspect and make adjustments. The case of Rosa and Franz Bacogni is typical, husband and wife working side by side, sharing the labor rhythm naturally without the need for verbal instructions. Women played a vital role, particularly in stages requiring meticulousness and a steady hand. They also served as short-term peddlers, taking advantage of gaps in household chores. Labor in Neroth was thus inseparable from life. It merged into the rhythm of daily existence. During assembly, one frame wire must be longer than the others. It is through this specific wire that the spiral handle is pulled up. Afterward, the shorter wires are tucked neatly inside the handle. Finally, Franz Bacogni bends a loop at the end of the long wire to secure the entire frame, simultaneously forming a hanging hook. This product was not only sold by peddlers, but also appeared in newspaper advertisements and sales catalogs. Small but practical, the egg whisk became a bridge that helped the Neroth wire-weaving trade take deeper root in everyday life.
Das hatte mit Glück.
In the history of the Neroth wire-weaving trade, Matthias Schottis is a distinctive name. He was not only a craftsman, but also a former peddler and eventually a business owner. He specialized in complex tasks using heavy-gauge galvanized steel wire. In these images, he is crafting a cake stand base, starting with a frame of 4 thick steel wires tightly bound at the center. When crafting the cake stand, he begins with a 4-wire frame tied in the middle, placed atop curved loops that serve as the supporting feet. The frame wires are then wrapped and spread outward, achieving stability through the addition of an inner and an outer ring. To ensure that the mesh bindings of the cake stand are uniform in size, he uses a technique of wrapping the wire in a figure-8 pattern around 2 fixed nails on his workbench. From the 1950s onward, industrial production caused a severe decline in the prices of handcrafted goods. Hand-woven mesh was replaced by industrial mesh. The income was no longer sufficient to sustain a living. Many people transitioned into the construction industry. Matthias Schottis, who once supplied goods to approximately 40 peddlers, also closed his business in 1953. A form of family labor that had endured for over a century officially came to an end. While most of the Neroth wire workers abandoned the trade in search of more stable employment, Franz Bakoni chose a different path, hanging flower baskets.
Das ist schon richtig, Uso. Ha, du noch weiter so. Ja. Das ist das Komplizierte ja auf der Welt.
The baskets are assembled from serrated frames and 2 metal rings, onto which he secures 4 decorative wires bent into soft, spiral shapes. The hanging portion of the basket is formed from wire coils, possessing a structure similar to that of an egg whisk. Franz Bakoni meticulously attends to every small detail of the flower baskets. He thoroughly inspects each product to eliminate any possible defects. The traps are also regularly reviewed. Rosa Bacconi often assists her husband in the stage of attaching the 4 spiral wires to the protruding decorative wires.
Gut.
Before World War II, these hanging flower baskets were highly sought after, particularly for decorating winter gardens and balconies. Matthias Schottis is now crafting a mass capture trap. Its dimensions are significantly larger than any of the previous trap designs. The basic structure consists of 6 vertical frames forming the main body and 2 end frames to secure the overall shape. The one-way trapdoor is the key element. When the animal steps inside, the door swings down. As it continues to move forward, the door immediately returns to the closed position, thanks to a small weight attached to the back. There are no springs. There is no forceful snap. There is only gravity and geometry. This design ensures one thing: the animal can enter, but it cannot find a way out, even when multiple animals are inside at the same time. Given the large size and the high number of wires, maintaining the trap's shape during the weaving process becomes a major challenge. To solve this, the craftsman uses a Kopfbrett, a type of rotating headboard. This board holds the frames in their correct positions, allowing the craftsman to rotate the trap around its axis while weaving the mesh. As a result, the hand pressure is distributed evenly, and the wire loops are not pulled off center to one side. The craftsman works at a steady, almost mechanical pace. There are no longer moments of pausing for aesthetic adjustments. Each loop of wire is identical to the last. Each connection point is treated exactly the same. This is the stage that most clearly demonstrates the difference between artistic craftsmanship and production-oriented craft. The hands are still working, but the mind has shifted into a different mode. Once the mesh is complete, the Kopfbrett is removed. At this point, the trap must stand firm on its own. The craftsman cuts and rebends the frame ends, installing a secondary door to remove the rodents once the trap is full. The standard dimensions of a finished Massenfänger are approximately 55 centimeters in length and 25 centimeters in width, large enough to hold several animals, yet still portable for a peddler. At this stage, the product no longer bears a distinct personal signature like the hanging flower baskets. Each trap is nearly identical to the last, and that is exactly what the market demanded. Peddlers like Vinzenz Leclerc, seen here, either produce the goods themselves or purchase them from manufacturers. Their conversations were conducted in the local dialect and in Jänisch, a type of secret language.
Ja, ich muss mal fragen, was du ne?
Oh, nu langsam.
Ja, nu, das geht nicht langsam.
Das ja noch nicht.
Ich muss dir noch welche Schere. Wir sind noch ein paar.
Was kostet das?
Hast du die Schere hingelegt?
Ja, ich habe eine Schere.
Was?
Ich habe eine Schere.
Ja.
Kannst du da beschwören?
Beschwommen?
Ja.
Schores?
War.
Kein. Ja, da geht.
Die kriegen, aber so ist es nicht.
Ja, nu, los, also die erste willst du brauchen. Die erste hat nicht bezahlt.
Ja, lass doch los.
Ja, da die Schere ist noch geworden, die war.
Ja, nu langsam.
Ja, nu,
Was kostet nu eigentlich?
Der ganze Satz für den Tag. Der ganze Satz muss ich schon. Noch ein Knäffchen. Der Schänze war Duft. Schön's.
Ei, du, aber da warst du auch wieder. Wie die was da kommt.
Oh ja, ich habe jetzt eine Stunde Schälen konnte. Ich später von der.
Hast alles verkündigt.
Kein Schön's, alles verkündigt. Ich später war ein paar mehr Gläschen haben für den ersten Tag.
Hast du da Bicht? Hast du Schätze
Oh,
versucht?
der Schön's. Der Spiel ist jetzt.
Ich hab das letzte Mal gesagt, es geht nächst nicht an, ja, nicht.
Schön's, ein herrliches Fett Lobby. Der Spiel ist mit Wochen und dann kriegst du auch Lobby vom Schön's.
Was hättest du da hier?
Ja, Tomer ist gemacht. So versichern.
Was ist da hier?
Von Kimpio, ne?
Ja,
So war die so die ganze Tag brauch.
Ein anderer bei Mattes lässt das, ja.
Ja, das ist richtig. Kein schönes Versichern, die Durchschnitterung.
Ja, du,
Ich
ja,
kann aber noch eine Stuppe.
Stuppen, ja, auch eine Stuppe dabei. Stuppe muss ich schon. Eine Stuppe dabei. Ja, der Kind auch da haben, der Kind da haben. Die anderen können schei und paar Kimpio. Na, das ist ja noch, ja, da soll uns ein Rattenklapp fallen, oder? Ne? Ich schon alles verkauft. Ne? Der erste noch zwei hin ist ja, oder? Ne? Zwei hin ist ja, ne? Und ein Lochfallen. Ne? Jetzt muss ein Lochfallen oder geworden. Ne? Ja, die erste Mal noch la. Das Kimpchen. Ne?
So.
Die erste Mal noch kommt. Jetzt mal noch die Schafe. Jetzt mal noch die Lochfallen.
Du, das gibt
Kimpchen, und ja, du hast noch drunten. Dann habe ich das auch noch mit. Und der erste Mal noch ein paar Tage kleine Leute, war der Feld. Das Feld ja. Ne? Das ist ja mal noch. Hast du noch ein paar da?
Ja, ich wollte die 3 Mann.
Kann ich mir die 3 Euro noch mal gelegen, ne? Ich bin, die war die habe ich auch noch was, ne? Da war ich mein Französische noch holen, ne? Am Ende
Ja, wenn
Stuppe.
ich jetzt da los.
Ja, mal frei.
Ja, ja, dann Computer immer mit rein, ne?
Ja, man muss jetzt gucken, wo ich landen, ne?
Geht im Süden oder im Norden?
Da macht das gut, ne? Musst du noch was lesen, wenn ich da immer mal was sagen, da redest du hin, ne? Dann hast du nicht, dass ich nur verkaufen, das muss auch jetzt gemacht werden, ne?
Vergessen all das.
Kein schönes,
Also
ne?
du gut verkaufen, dann tun wir auch jetzt verkaufen.
Ja, kein, ne?
Also
Das ist ja, ne?
The home-based workers and wirecraft peddlers of Neroth overcame numerous economic crises for over 130 years. From the very beginning, they knew how to organize themselves and support one another effectively. In the past, these peddlers were a familiar sight on the streets of a simpler world. However, the rapidly changing pace of life, combined with new forms of consumerism, led to the gradual end of the traditional peddling trade. The story of Neroth is not just about a product, nor is it merely the history of a craft. It is the story of how people learned to survive using what they had in their hands, at the exact place and moment in history. From rough coils of iron wire, the people of Neroth built an entire labor ecosystem. Small workshops inside homes, bending tables next to kitchens, children growing up to the sound of metal, and adults aging alongside repetitive joints. Iron wire became a shared language. No writing required, only hands precise and patient enough. In Neroth, technique never existed in isolation. Every trap, every basket, and every kitchen tool carries the traces of social conditions, of poverty, of migration, of law, and of the market. The shape of a product changed as needs changed. Spring mechanisms appeared when poisons were banned. Scales expanded when rodents appeared in swarms. Art emerged when production was no longer the only path to survival. And then, like every other craft in the industrial era, the Neroth wire weaving trade reached its limit, not because it was wrong, but because the world around it had shifted to a different frame of reference, faster, cheaper, and more anonymous. When machines took over the form, human hands retreated from the process. But what disappeared was not just a method of production, it was a rhythm of life, a way of learning a trade without schools, an economy based on trust and word of mouth, a secret language that existed only on the road, a direct relationship between the maker and the user. This film does not aim to revive the wire weaving trade, nor does it seek to idealize the past. It does something much simpler. It remembers. It remembers that there was once a village where people bent metal with their bare hands, bending their own lives along thin but resilient wires. And perhaps, in an increasingly automated and invisible world, remembering those hands, slow, precise, quiet, is also a way for us to ask ourselves, not what we have produced, but how we lived while making it. Thank you for listening to the end of the story. If you enjoy videos like this, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next stories. Raw Machines says goodbye and see you again.